Justin Broadrick special. The last section of the interview is coming up now. Yeah, coming up now. So you had said that you're really on top of all the latest gadgetry and that kind of thing. I mean, you have to be really facile at using that in order to, if you're trying to create like the dream state. I guess I don't see that there would be time to get hung up with, wait, where is that sound? Where is that sound I'm trying to make? So it seems like you have just hours and hours and years of really learning the technology so that it can come out in the way that you want it to.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, it's everything is a learning process for me. I get new equipment and I literally put it into practice immediately. I mean, of course, I do sit there with manuals, but I'm sitting there being constructive as far as I'm concerned anyway. I'm immediately using this equipment. I can't just sit there and tinker around, It has to have meaning. Even though I'm trying to learn equipment, or, or sitting there with a biblical amount of manuals, which is what it can turn into, this stuff. I'm not just a tech nerd, you know what I mean? And in fact, I've got no wish to just be a nerd who knows how to work these pieces of technology or whatever inside out. I approach the guitar in the same way, I don't consider myself at all a proficient guitarist. I'm not in any traditional sense. I've just took what I can, I've just pushed certain things out the way and try and get to what I can, what's in my head, but with a disregard for tradition somewhat, because I can't be bothered to learn the traditional way of doing things. I can only learn my own way of doing things. I think that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Because that's more exciting than trying to find out how other people do things or whatever, or what the traditional way of doing things is. I mean, by doing that, one makes a lot of mistakes, But again, I think there's a lot of beauty in mistakes in music,
Well, and that's you saying that there's mistakes. Also.
Yeah,
just
to, of course,
yeah.
It's all entirely subjective. It's like to others, sometimes I've found songs, albums, even entire albums I'm completely unhappy with will be some of my most popular work. I mean, it often happens. I mean, this is it. You can't second guess anyone. So just work for oneself, really. Ultimately, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so you said that you do watch a lot of films. Is there any movie that you would love to do a soundtrack for?
Wow, we could probably talk 6 hours alone about that sort of stuff.
Okay.
That's almost impossible for me to summarise.
Okay.
I mean, of course, you watch certain movies that have stuck with me for years that were inspirational. It's pretty much all my music, and you think, wow. But I never, to be honest, I mean, most movies, when I watch them and I love them, I'm probably entirely satisfied with the way it worked, and I couldn't even see myself spoiling it, Yeah, I mean, and some movies you watch and musically they're just perfect, or sometimes the music doesn't even enter into the equation,
Right, yeah, a lot of times it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost impossible for me to call that one.
Okay. Was one of the Godflesh records recorded in a bathroom?
I think the guitars and vocals were recorded in the bathroom in the house we were living in at the time. I think in the early 90s, actually. That was when we first started getting our own equipment, Mm-hmm. I think because we first started getting our own equipment and didn't have an allocated space, so to speak.
So that was like poor man's reverb?
Yeah, absolutely. We were clutching at straws. We were just learning through your mistakes, I know that I most certainly wanted to start producing our own records, I wanted to get our own equipment instead of going in and out of other people's studios, which I found really dissatisfying, I could never, I always dreamt about my own studio. Even when I was about 10, 11 years old, my stepfather had some really primitive equipment when I was a kid, and I used to love just tinkering with his equipment. I found it really exciting. First time I ever went in commercial studios, I found it a really nullifying experience, I just, the environment, working with other people you've never met before in your life, and, mostly having disagreeable personalities. It all just, all these things are just, for me, were just obstacles, It's the, music, for me, making music, recording music is such an entirely personal thing that I don't wish to be doing this with 3 people sitting around and accommodating their personalities and etc., etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, the people from the studio or whatever. You know, some T-boy on the side, some engineer, some manager, some whatever. I just for me, this is, you know what I mean? It just it's a personal experience for me. It's like all you people get out. You know, it's like you don't even want to be looked at when you're doing this stuff. You know what I mean? It's just, I knew that the only route was to get our own equipment and to do. And you know, and to get our foot in the door of recording our own records, we had to take a lot of risks and we had to make a lot of mistakes. You know.
Yeah.
Even though the guitars were recorded in that bathroom were fantastic. I think it's funny because the best record that come out of the bathroom was the best song anyway. It was Slate Man by Godflesh. You know.
Yeah.
That song is one of my favourite ever all-time Godflesh songs, and that was where the bathroom legend came from. You know, I recorded the guitars and my vocals for that song in the bathroom in the house we were living in at the time, and it's one of the best sounding guitar tones I ever committed to tape. Oddly enough, for me anyway. But so it says it all, really. You know.
Well, yeah, and it does, and just in terms of experimentation and what you've done, and really. You know, I just want to thank you for putting yourself out there and experimenting and, as you term, you know, failing over and over again to put forth the music that you have with Godflesh and Jesu and all your projects. I want to recognize the extraordinary contribution that you've made to the world of music.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm often humbled by, like you saying that, and you know, and a lot of stuff I generally hear. I still find, you know, I still don't see myself in the equation sometimes. It's still really, really odd.
Well, you are in the equation.
Yeah.
You were the front and center of that equation. I mean, you know, really, there was when the first Godflesh record came out, it first of all didn't sound like there were any, quote, mistakes. It really blindsided a whole section of people, like this new thing, like, oh my God. It didn't take you guys a couple albums to get to your stride, regardless of what you felt musically and your experimentation and that kind of thing. It was such a solid statement and really just blew away any standard that there was. And
those early Godflesh records, I mean, the first Godflesh album, and it's the self-titled, I guess you're referring to, not Street Cleaner.
You know, I think I heard Street Cleaner first.
Yeah, as did most people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those first two albums, they were recorded when we were so young as well. I mean, I was still a teenager, literally, when those records were recorded. So for me, it was just literally pushing. They were extremely instinctive records, you know, primal, atavistic almost. Do you know what I mean? They were just not even recognising anything but. Yeah. I could actually digress forever about those records, but yeah, I mean they were made, but they are a sum of what I'd done previously. I guess we arrived at that via, you know, my years with Napalm Death and Head of David, of course. And Head of David were my experience and time in Head of David was, you know, Godflesh wouldn't have existed without that either. So it was a snowball thing, but we hit it quick with the sound.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking's not even the word. What do you want people to know about you in closing?
You know, it's a shame, but even now, I've probably been saying this over 23, 24 years of doing interviews. I still am absolutely useless at closing comments.
Okay.
Really, really, absolutely useless. Yeah, I mean, besides expressing gratitude to every single person that even likes or buys my music, in this day and age, wow, mega gratitude for those who actually reach in their pocket and buy one of my records. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you see record sales these days next to the amount that actually take your music for free, and it's just like, wow, you know. There are 10 to 20 times more people taking your music for free than those who buy it, you know. It's crazy. True. Even those who take it for free, if they get something from it, then, you know, who am I to argue? Yeah, I do, you know, I mean, for me, that's all I can ever say, really, is I'm just absolutely grateful that I had somehow have continued to have an audience for my music, you know.
We're there for you. And really looking forward to whatever the next thing is, and thank you for being there and for creating what you do, because I think in a lot of ways, because there's not that many lyrics, it's sort of like not a lot of your projects are really sing-along. You know, there's a whole lot of emotion that we're allowed to express ourselves through your listening to your music, and that's a huge part of the process. And, you know, I mean, you listen to a love song, and if it doesn't really fall exactly in step with what you're going through, you sing it, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And your music is open in that way where it's obviously really emotional.
Yeah.
And it brings a lot of being able to get things out for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that is pretty much what I'm here to do. I do feel that, you know, when by the time my music becomes public, then that it is for the public. Then it was for me first and foremost. Mm-hmm. By the time it's released, it's for the world, you know, and it's for the world to appropriate it to their own lives. And it is exactly that. That's why a lot of my stuff has been considered by many to be ambiguous. But I listen to music in the same way. We all interpret what we want from music. We take what we want individually. You know what I mean? And that for me is that's something I've tried to do. That is something I want to do. I want people to take what they want. And I'm not being dogmatic with lyrically or anything, you know. It's emotional, it's all in the music.
And that is completely understood. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.